Good afternoon. Today we will study about the determiner which as a subordinating conjunction. We've studied about the determiner which as one of the interrogatives. And we've studied that the speaker applies the determiner which on the premise that the speaker sets a predetermined range of an indication described by the determiner which, like which season, and the speaker allows the listeners to make it clear out of the options of the predetermined range. If the speaker asks the listeners about this interrogative, like what season do you like, it may mean that the speaker already set the predetermined range of 4 seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. And by the description of the subject and the transitive verb like, the speaker and the listeners can make the season clear. In this class, we will study about the determiner which applied as a subordinating conjunction. And we can also admit that the basic premise, the premise for applying the determiner which as a subordinating conjunction is the same as the premise for applying the determiner which as the interrogative determiner. So let's read the explanation together. The speaker reveals the premise that the subject or object indicated by the noun or pronoun that the interrogative determiner which describes in the phrase of the subordinating conjunction to include the interrogative determiner which is included in the predetermined range before the speaker states the sentence like, I like which season you like. In this sentence, the speaker predetermined the range of the object indicated by the noun season. And we will study about the way that the determiner which is applied as a subordinating conjunction by the 3 examples. Let's read them briefly. You convey which card our Lord assigns to you. In this sentence, we can find that the speaker applies the subordinate clause, which card our Lord assigns to you is the object of the main clause with the subject you and the transitive verb convey. Then let's look into the subordinate clause, which card our Lord assigns to you. In this subordinate clause, we find that the phrase of the general noun, which card, that links the subordinate clause to the main clause, is the object of the transitive verb assigns in the subordinate clause. And let's read the second sentence. We love which virtue you are gifted from Jesus Christ. In this sentence, we can find that the subordinate clause, which virtue you are gifted from Jesus Christ, is the object of the main clause to receive the definition of the transitive verb love from the subject we. And let's look into the subordinate clause. In the subordinate clause, the phrase of the general noun, which virtue is the object of the subjective complement by the second transitivity. It has been a while that we mentioned about this term, the second transitivity. In this clause, in the suborder clause, the speaker states the speaker has the passive voice. So we can say that we can admit that the listeners were the indirect object of a statement stated in the active voice of the speaker. And the be verb describes the subject, and the past participle gifted describes the subject, the listeners, while revealing the fact that the subject, the listeners, were the indirect objects in the statement with the voice of the active voice. And then we can think of the role of the direct object, which virtue is the direct object in the statement stated by the active voice of the speaker, and in the suborder clause is stated in the passive voice of the speaker. So we can say that the past participle gifted is in the form of the past participle for the first transitivity, for the structure of the entire clause, according to the intent of the speaker, who has the passive voice. And then the direct object still receives the definition of the transitive verb gift, because the transitive verb gift might be the verb in the clause stated in the active voice of the speaker. So we can say that the direct object, which virtue, still receives the definition of the transitive verb gift from the original subject, Jesus Christ. Let's study about the third example as well. Which system you had adjusted and changed it again? I'm sorry, I think I need to read it again. Which system you had adjusted and changed again? In this sentence, we find that the transitive verb changed is applied as the verb of the main clause, and we can say that the suborder clause, which system you had adjusted in, is the subject of the main clause, while being described by the intransitive verb changed. And let's look into the suborder clause. In the suborder clause, the phrase of the general noun which system is the object of the preposition in. And this suborder clause is stated in the past perfect tense. This means that the speaker states this clause at the present about the situation, about the condition that was completed in the past. The condition that can be described by the past participle adjusted was declared to be completed in the past by the speaker already, and the speaker mentions the completion of the experience at the present. So that's the reason why the speaker applies the form of the of the intransitive verb had in this clause. Let's study from the first example one by one. The first example was that you conveyed which card our Lord assigns to you. The speaker indicates the object with the subordinate clause which card our Lord assigns to you. To receive the definition of the transitive verb convey from the listeners as the subject of the main clause. The phrase of the subordinating conjunction which card indicates the object to receive the definition of the transitive verb assigns from the subject our Lord in the subordinate clause. The speaker reveals the information that the object that the noun card described by the subordinating conjunction which indicates is included in the predetermined range set by the speaker. This is the premise to apply the determiner which, and the range of the object is about the object card. And this is the page for analyzing the first example by the two clauses. The first one is that the determiner which is applied as the interrogative determiner. Which card does our Lord assign to you? And the second clause is this: you convey the card, and the second clause might become the main clause. And the speaker finds that the card and which card in the first clause are the shared indication. Then the speaker does not have any inquisitive intent in the first clause, so the speaker integrates the two clauses while replacing the card, the shared indication in the main clause, by the entire first clause that became the declarative statement. That's how the first example is stated. Let's read the explanation together. The speaker links the interrogative clause, the first one, transformed into the declarative clause to the main clause as the subordinate clause because the object of the transitive verb does not sign, indicated by the phrase of the noun which card corresponds with the object of the transitive verb convey, indicated by the phrase of the noun the card. In the next class, we will keep studying about the second and the third example. Thank you for watching.